Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the 8th South Forum on Sustainability. The theme is the politics of hope, people's resilient and resistant in catastrophic times. Since the first lecture on friendship, hope, and surprise, the keys for the new era by Gustavo Esteva on 15th of June, we have already organized 10 dialogues, 14 lectures, and 3 workshops. We have an average of 70 to 100 audience in Zoom and about 350 Chinese audience in a social media platform in China. For all sections, we provide simultaneous interpretation in English, Chinese, and Spanish. We would like to thank today's interpreters, Julieta Mendes, Sandrine Alongi, Huang Xiaomei, and Li Monghong. Today, we have lecture 15, Cultural Granaries for a Liveable Kampung, Negotiation and Resilience in Indonesia by Professor Melanie BUDIANTA. May I first introduce the co-moderator and speakers for today's sections. My name is Tsui, Margaret Jadi. I am Associate Professor at the Institute of Rural Reconstruction of China in Southwest University in China. I am board member of Asian Regional Exchange for New Alternatives and one of the founding members of Global University for Sustainability. I have been actively involved in the rural reconstruction movement in China since 2000. Dr. Ariel is visiting professor in the Faculty of Humanities, Nelson Mandela University in South Africa. She was former senior fellow in post-growth societies, Friedrich Schiller University, Germany, and research associate in political economy of University of Sydney in Australia. Dr. Seller's transdisciplinary writing is seminal to political ecology as an emerging studies of humanity-nature relations. Her embodied materialist approach emphasized the centrality of reproductive or regenerative labor in the world system. By restoring value to local everyday care, giving skills, and indigenous knowledge, Seller re-examines social justice and sustainability questions like climate change and neoliberal green economics. Her theoretical work draws on activist experience in anti-nuclear politics, water catchments, biodiversity protection, and support for Asia-Pacific women creating eco-sufficient community alternatives. Seller is currently writing a multi-volume critique of discourses in environmental thoughts. And now I would like to introduce our honorable speaker, Professor Melanie BUDIANTA. She is a professor in literature and cultural studies at the University of Indonesia. She is an intellectual activist who has published works on gender and cultural diversity. She got her BA at the English Study Program in University of Indonesia, MA in American Studies at the University of Southern California, and PhD in English from Cornell University in the United States. She serves as a member of editorial collective in a number of academic journals, including Inter-Asia Culture Studies, Journal Wakana Sainik, and Indian Journal of Gender Studies. She has served as selection committee members in Ironman Fellowship, Asian Public Intellectual, and Euroseas Book Prize in 2015. She was a research fellow at Asia Research Institute in 2010, a visiting lecturer at Kyoto University in 2016, and University of Naples Oriental in 2018. Her publications include An Ocean of Becoming, Literature from the Indonesian Archipelago, and in 2017, and Indonesian Women Writers in 2015. Among her published articles Workers' Migration and Cultural Belonging in Globalized Asia, published on International Journal of Cultural Studies in 2016. And Beyond Multiculturalism, Redefining Nationalhood in a Globalized Age, in Multiculturalism and Challenges of Democratization in Europe and Asia in 2014. Okay, thank you very much. The floor is Professor Melanie BUDIANTA. Thank you very much. Please.
Thank you, Jadi. I'm very honored to join this 8th South Forum on Sustainability. And I'm ready to discuss with you and with the audience on the issue of cultural sustainability in Indonesia, in Indonesian Kampung. So let me share my PowerPoint. I would like to start by giving definition about several terms here. First is kampung, and what a definition of kampung, urban and rural kampung, and all the problems or issues that related to kampung. And then I will talk about cultural granaries and why it is relevant in our discussion about kampung. And later on, I will talk about the several examples of kampung activism and also the way the state is positioned vis-a-vis this activism. And my theme in this talk is to see how this concept of cultural granaries is used for kampung activists to negotiate with the current globalization and for building their resilience. Okay, so first I will talk about kampung, right? There are diverse meanings of kampung. It encompasses rural villages, 2 unplanned informal settlements in the cities, and also this desa kota or urbanized village. So the term kampung refers to all of this, and usually to a cultural unit rather than administrative unit, right? And the term kampung itself has some connotations in Bahasa Indonesia. It's not neutral, but usually the connotation is not very positive. Usually, if you talk about urban kampung, you say kampung or kampungan, it refers to something that is outdated, something that is not cool for the millennials, something that is backward, that kind of thing. But if you talk about kampung in terms of village, usually it has some nostalgia, a sense of community longing to return to the, to the hometown, something like that. Now, this is an example of an urban kampung, usually very dense in Jakarta, and in other cities, almost similar. We have alleys and very crowded housing. And this is it is unplanned urban settlement in the city. So it also have different kind of context if in each cities. For example, in Jakarta, you have kampungs that are near the industrial estate. There are kampungs that are in the downtown area, but more or less, they look like that. I mean, densely populated with houses of simple houses. And if you talk about, and some people use the term slum for this kind of area, which has a negative connotation, which of course the kampung activists and from their perspective, they would not like to have this term used against them. The other one is, if you talk about rural kampung, then it's a little bit different. There is a rural, very rural, in which, I mean, it's very much isolated from the city, or urbanized desa kota, in the middle, urbanized village. This is an example of a kampung in Flores, which is outside Java. So, of course, they will vary, but this is to give a picture of the urban kampung, the difference between urban kampung and rural kampung. Now, what is their condition in the present state of global capitalism? We know that there is always this direction, especially the state, to create a futuristic picture of the city in the future, which is the mega cities, smart cities, with technology, digital technology. And there is this estimate that with the expansion of urbanization, in the year of 2050, there will be about 55% to 68% people living in the cities. And some studies mention that the region with the highest number of megacities are Asia and Africa. So what is the consequence of this kind of trajectory, urban trajectory, to the kampungs? The one consequence is many rural areas will be converted into urban space. And even in the isolated rural area, we can see already urban consumption and urban lifestyle entering into kampung community, including transactional mentalities. So this is the one thing that is becoming the condition of the kampung, urban kampung as well as rural kampung. But at this moment, we have the pandemic. The pandemic serves as a wake-up call for all of us. It becomes a mirror that reflects the problems of today's cosmopolitan perspective, urban perspective, as well as our neoliberal trajectories. First of all, we are facing the ecological destruction, especially of extractive industries and urban expansion all over the planet, and especially in Indonesia. For example, there is one of the biggest island in Indonesia is Borneo or Kalimantan. It used to be called the lung of the world. It's the world's lung, meaning that is the source of oxygen, and there are rainforests there. But if you go and fly over Borneo now, you practically see no more forest. It has been changed, replaced by palm oil plantations, almost a lot of them, and also mining zones. So this is this of course has been occurring a long time already, but the time of the pandemic makes us realize what it means if the forest is gone, and then we talk about zoonosis, how the viruses that is spreading from wild animals, losing their home to human beings, and etc., etc. There is also the problem of urban consumption and pollution. When the pandemic started, we looked. There was a lot of pictures of cities that becoming very quiet, and pollution sort of recedes, right? So it makes us realize that before the pandemic, the cities are completely polluted. It is a sign that the carrying out capacity of the planet cannot support our lifestyle, our urban consumption. Another thing that we started to realize is the connection of spaces. In the global capitalism, people are related, already connected through digital technology, and there is, the capital exchange runs from one village to another. So it's the world is connected, but sometimes this connection is taken for granted, and we did not see the relationship between this kind of connection. In the beginning, I talked that I mentioned that kampung is always seen as a problem from the perspective of our cosmopolitan and modern urban modernity. Why is kampung seen as a problem? Because in the perspective of the mega city or the expansion of the cosmopolitan cities or cosmopolitan centers, kampung is a kind of something to be corrected, something that is to be cleaned, because even starting from colonial modernity, kampung is seen as a problem because this is a source. They see it as a source of disease, it's a source of a lot of crimes, and in that kind of urban trajectory, there are three possibilities or three perspectives. First, kampung has to be gentrified, to be upgraded so that they could meet the qualification of the cosmopolitan city. But in order to be gentrified, then the land, the kampung area, will be converted into areas for urban consumption or for a residential area that is changed in such a way that it fits the cosmopolitan city. What it means is that the lands, the community where the kampung is now, usually will be affected in different ways. First, there will be the lands will be changed. So they will offer some money, a lot of capitals. People with investment will come to the kampungs and offer money to the kampung dwellers so that they will release their land, so that the area can be gentrified. So it means that sooner or later, the inhabitants that stays in kampung will have to move somewhere else with the money that they can get from the sale of the land. Another thing is eviction, forced eviction. There are many forced eviction occurring in urban kampungs based on morality or legality, legal issue. One thing that we have to know is that many kampung dwellers have no legal documents in staying in the kampung. So in terms of legality, they have no rights to stay there, and the state can take their land anytime. Number two is in the perspective of morality. Some kampungs in Java and in Surabaya are marked as red zone. where there is prostitution, or even dark zone or black zone where there are a lot of crime or drugs dealing, etc. So this kampung, based on the perspective of this urban modernity, sooner or later will be affected and replaced by completely changed into a different kind of space for the urban consumption. So that is what is threatening the urban kampung communities. But these kampung are not merely space, not merely land, or not merely houses. There are people living there, and there are communities living there. Some of them have lived there for a long time and have close-knit community. They have a strong bonding with each other, and they really feel at home in their kampung and feel that kampung is their home. So this is one issue facing the urban kampung. In terms of the rural area, the urban expansion also poses as a threat to the rural area. Why? Because there is a strong demand for a land conversion into, for example, industrial estate, as the cities are expanding towards the rural area. So they also are facing land grabbing. And they are also facing the loss of rice fields, of their gardens, in order to be converted into industrial estate. In the isolated area, in rural area outside Java, there are lots of mining activity and extractive industries, mining, and also, for example, extensive palm oil plantation. These are also pushing the rural kampungs away, taking up their land, or engulfing them into this big industrial or plantation, or a palm oil plantation, different kind of environment, right? So there are these problems that are facing these communities, rural kampung and urban kampung. But we forgot to realize that actually the cities, the cosmopolitan area, are very much supported by the urban kampungs. The urban kampungs supply workforce towards for the residential areas, the middle class residential area, workforce for factories in the cities. Why? Because the urban kampung are cheap. They offer a cheaper place for these workers to stay. So they become the place for this labor force to stay. And also, they become the places for the rural villagers. When they move to the cities, they will stay in the urban kampung area. And the rural kampung is also the supplier of not only workforce, but also agricultural products. So the spaces are very much connected. This is something that often not realized when the city planners are expanding the cities and just erasing the kampungs as if there is just a space to be converted into the city space. Now, we also need to realize that urban and rural kampungs are very vulnerable. When the pandemic started in 2020 and up to now, we see the vulnerability of urban and rural kampungs. In urban kampungs, first of all, there is a population density, sparsity of space in the housing and alleys. And there is also limited access to healthcare and support. Why? Because many of them do not have the right documents to show when you need some healthcare or support by the government. Another thing is the loss of jobs because of the closing of factories and cancellation of domestic service to prevent the spread of the pandemic. So while they live in a dense area, at the same time, many of them lost their job and become unemployed. In the rural areas, there is this wave of migrant workers returning from cities and foreign countries because, you know, they were sent back from the foreign countries because of the pandemic, and the cities, they lost their jobs, so they're returning back to the village. While in the village, there is no job or work available. And of course, these people coming from the cities and from abroad, they might be bringing the virus from the travel and from the urban centers. And we have to also understand that the rural areas have very limited access to healthcare and support because of their distance from the urban centers. So these two areas are very vulnerable during the pandemics. That's why it is highly urgent, highly critical for these two communities to build their resilience. First of all, the issue is issue of food sufficiency. How do they regain ownership of lands and gardens to recultivate vegetables and crops for subsistence, you know, for household and village consumption? Many of these gardens are already converted into agricultural hard crops like cocoa or you know, all other kind of agricultural crops. Yeah, no longer they plant rice, vegetables for their daily use. We can understand this because if you started to shift your rice field into palm trees, the farmers will get more money. And for them, this is very important, to get money in order to send their children to school, in order to, you know, to buy their daily food, etc. So this palm oil tree is really, or hard crops, other agricultural industries, giving them more money than just rice fields. But during the pandemics, when all import are, you know, export and import business are closing down, they started to have food insufficiency. And so this is very critical, how the villages regain again their land and their garden and started to recultivate the vegetable for daily consumption. Secondly is community building, to ensure that the weakest and the most vulnerable in the village, usually the elderly, are taken care of. How to rebuild social solidarity that has been eroded by transactional mentality of the neoliberal ideology. You know, the state are coming to them, the capitals are coming to them, offering money for this and that service. So the tradition of, for example, we have this term gotong royong, or helping one another in the kampung area. Of course, it's still there, but with the flow of cash coming from the government to ask for this their service, this spirit sometimes is eroded because they are used to getting money for their service. Another thing is cultural resilience. Young people in kampungs feel that they are not cool, that they have inferiority complex. They see themselves not as, modern as the city people, the people in the urban centers. So they usually do not want to be associated with their kampung. They would like to move to the city and probably just work as factory workers or anything in the city, as long as they can stay there and not staying in their kampung. So cultural resilience is important so that the youth can have pride in their own kampung and their identity as belonging to the village. So these are 3 issues that are facing the kampung people. Now, we are talking about a term that has been used quite widely in cultural studies circle, which is commoning or commons, right? How to regulate or to manage an open space through democratic participation by a local community with a sort of an inclusive kind of a ideology. Everybody is invited to participate together, to work together in regulating and organizing the open space. Yeah, this is some of the reference when the Garrett Hardin talked about the tragedy of the commons. He was talking about the impossibility of letting the space be used by everybody just like that, because according to Hardin, then this open space will be used because of greed. People will use the open space according to what they wish, and finally the open space, the resources will be depleted, right? So the key, according to Hardin, is to privatize the open space, to encircle the open space with privatization, right? And this has become the basis of the capitalization, right? We see open spaces, the beaches in Bali, for example, so already owned by hotels, transnational, chain hotels, etc. And there is no open space for people. There is, it's already privatized. But the idea of Ostrom, of governing the commons, is completely different. Ostrom learned from South America and other places how the open space can be regulated by the community and it can be sustainable. So this idea of commons, right, can be seen as an alternative to state and capital privatization. Here I quote Kidwani and Paviskar that how to resist the widening circuits of capitalism is to keep alive the commons, the collective practices, yeah, to create a sustainable community and also ecology. So how is this commons related to the Indonesian practice? If we talk about social commoning or the theory of the commons, of course, people will not understand what it means. But if you use the local term, lumbung, or rice granary, right? If you use that term, then people will understand what a granary is. This term, lumbung or granary, or rice granary, is known all over Indonesia. We have 700 languages, so there must be 700 terms for lumbung. It's just examples of different local term for lumbung or rice granary, right? It's krong, sopo in Sumatra, and then there are so many different names all over the area. So Indonesian islands, all over Indonesia, in the villages, in the rural area, they all know what lumbung is or what rice granary is, because it has been in their tradition to have this rice granary with them, right? There are two kinds of rice granary. Here is a picture of household granary, where people keep their whatever crops, the harvest, they can put for their daily consumption, household consumption. So they have their household rice granary, right? But at the same time, in each village, they have village granary. The village granary is the storage place, the storage area to keep rice, the harvest, or corn, any kind of crops. They save it in the granary, and when there is a time when people need some food, and when there is a problem, for example, there is a failure in the harvest, etc., you have something to save them. There is a food safety there in the granary. So people can rely on this village granary so that they will be able to have some food during difficult times, during the crisis. So this concept of granary is known by a lot of people. Even people staying in urban area, they still remember their granary back there in the village, right? So how does this concept of granary is enlarged to be cultural granary? It's just an enlargement of this concept of granary, that the ones to be saved, to be harvested, to be stored together in the village is not only food, but also their cultural resources, how they gather together all their cultural resources, their knowledge, their tradition, their memories, their ability to have, for example, like Margaret has been doing, for example, herbal medicine, right? Or their ability to do traditional massage or any other things, or dances, arts. These are all cultural resources. You know? These cultural resources are being depleted right now due to globalization, due to urbanization. Why? Again, like I said, people are not proud of what they have. They don't know the value of what they have. They would like to be modern, like they would like to be like city people. So they usually abandon, they forgot, they take it for granted, and they think that it's nothing. But now there is a movement to make them realize that they have something of value. And if they can put them together, and they can manage it for the well-being of the society, then they can live on it. Then it can be sustainable, right? So there are many hayloft or rice granary is used by a lot of kampung people as a symbol. They use it as symbol of their village, or symbol for the network of kampung people. As something to connect them together, right? Now, how do we translate? How do they translate this cultural granaries into action? I show you. This is an example of a Kampung museum, right? Very simple, just one glass glass case, and they keep everything that are related to their kampung there. They found this, any other small things, and they make their own kampung museum for the children to see, to see what are available there around the kampung. And they also started to realize that kampung is a common space and common area to be taken care of. So they have to create an environment, how to make the kampung a livable environment, something that they can feel at home and they feel comfortable to stay. How to create that? This is a part also of creating resources, upgrading the resources that they have, whatever they have, the ability to paint, the ability to decorate their house, and how they use the available space, any available space, dumping area into a common space, the open space, but use regulated for people to be used together, sharing the space together, sharing resources together. It can be land, it can be knowledge, it can be anything, but they pull it together, gather it together, and then share it to the community, for the community. So those who have empty land that are not used, they can lend it to the kampung community to be used for a place for a meeting place, for a playground for children. And then also how to pass knowledge that they have to the younger generation. And they use whatever place they have. It might be in the alley, it might be in the, whatever space they have, in order to teach what they have, that they know that they can live on. For example, here is tenun, or the way they weaving, cloth weaving, how children can be trained so that they know how to do the traditional cloth weaving, as it is an important source of living for the community. They also started to revive again their small, daily kind of rituals. For example, this is actually a way to husk, to pound the rice, so that the husk will be separated from the rice. So this is the pounding is used as a kind of a musical instrument, and the women are used to play this pounding of the rice, and it becomes music for them, so daily objects become music, and the music can be used for ritual, for welcoming guests to the kampung. And here is example of how to make what they know. For example, their grandma's recipe, how to make a traditional drain, for example, but make it such a way that the millennial, the young people, feel that it is not outdated. It can be turned into a kind of a lifestyle that is suitable for them. Like they create cafes, for example, in kampung or in villages or in alleys cafes, and then they put their recipe, traditional recipe, and presented in such a way that it is contemporary. It is up to their millennial taste, sort of the taste of young people. At the same time, the cafes, the village cafes, can be also used as a place for their getting together, discussion, and other things. And this is what Margaret always and Kinchi has been doing a long time with the community in Hong Kong and in China. Urban farming for food security. During the pandemic, this is becoming, a trend now. Not only in the kampung, urban kampungs, but also in middle class real estates. And they started to do the urban farming in their garden or even in a very small plot, because they realized that they need food security. When the kampung or the cities are undergoing lockdown, for example, and they cannot go out of the house, at least there is something that they can use for daily consumption. And this is how they manage this urban farming, the plot together and work together. This is before, of course, before the pandemic. They're not wearing any mask. This is another kind of urban farming activity in urban kampung. And they started to organize themselves, how to share the work, how to make schedules, who are involved. Here in the whiteboard, we can see in the right hand, there is some this last note is, the mothers have to be responsible for certain schedule. Like Monday is a time for mothers. Sunday is the time for children, and Friday night is the time for fathers and the young people. Then they also write down names of who is responsible to maintain the garden, etc. So this is all together, working together in order to take care of the resources that they gather, in order for them to be able to survive, to be resilient, living in the cities, living in the time of the pandemic. And this is a traditional, actually, rituals, not ritual. It's a kind of habit of contributing a glass of rice daily. So every household, this is a tradition in Java, yeah, to be put in a in a kampung storage for the time when they need it. So every day, each household will contribute a glass of rice, and it will be collected by the organizer, kampung organizer, and later on, when somebody needs it, they can use this from the storage, whatever they keep in the storage. This is the pandemics, right? The way they manage, how they keep healthy in the alleys, keeping fit together in the alleys, exercising. And then if they need now, there are a lot of stress, there are a lot of issues of mental health. They create this digital kind of corner for complaining, for sharing their issues, discussing it with friends. So these are initiative of commoning, actually, to do something together and to face the pandemic. Now, I would like to share some stories of the kampung commoning with the concept of cultural granaries. These kampungs that I will tell you about are connected in a network of kampung network. It's called Jaringan Kampung Nusantara or Nusantara Kampung Network. And this network is actually started with the WhatsApp group, right? And they connect to one another. It's kampung activists connecting to another kampung activist. They managed to connect quite a number of kampungs, about 50 kampungs together. And then these kampungs are starting to have discussion, regular discussion about their issue, environmental issue, social issue, cultural issues. Now, the first kampung that initiated this is Kampung Cempluk, right? This kampung is located in Malang, East Java. And it's initially a rural village, separated from the city because there is a big river separating them from the city. And those who stay there are usually manual laborers that commuted to the city and then returning to the village again, right? But Malang as a town, it started with a small town. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it started to expand to expand itself to the outskirts. And finally, there is a bridge that the one investor actually built across to this rural area. And soon, this kampung that used to be a rural area started to discover themselves being surrounded by gentrified middle-class environment. They started to suddenly becoming, from rural kampung, they become desa kota kampung, they become really urban kampung in the middle of this gentrified middle-class environment. And it's very, very easy for them to sell their land because their land is now getting more and more expensive in this gentrified area. And a lot of people are tempted to just give away their land. But one thing, when they realized that they wanted to stay there because they're already feeling they have been there for a long time. They have bonding as a community. Many of them are related in terms of from marriage, etc. They don't want to leave their kampung, but they're facing engulfment by the city, right? Soon they will be gone. This kampung will be gone. So in order to save or to retain their neighborhood, they try to create a strategy. The strategy is to, first of all, it's just for themselves. They want to create something together to remember the old time when the city is far away and there is no electricity. So they have to use kerosene lamp, right? Oil lamp. So they started this small, getting together, sharing their snack, using no electricity to remember the older times, right? And they have dances there, they have children singing, whatever, to spend the night. It started one night and it expanded into 2 nights, 3 nights, 1 week, right? And they started to realize that this is important to keep this togetherness alive. And there is this one university lecturer that married somebody in the kampung and stayed there, lived there. And this university lecturer helped this kampung festival to grow into something just more than just a local festival. It started to invite people to come, to join the festival. It started a promotion. And finally, it becomes, using the neoliberal term, or branding, so like a kampung branding. And their festival started to be known by the city. It becomes an icon. And when it becomes an icon, people come there, then there is justification or a reason for the real estate or something or whatever capital around them to keep them there. because they have a certain role for the city. They provide something, you know. So this is a strategy for them to negotiate with the onset of the urban expansion and to keep themselves there, to live there in the kampung. And from this festival, these activists asked the help of other friends in other kampung. If there is festival, other people, singers, or you know, a group of dancers from other kampung will come and join them. And this is the beginning of Jaringan Kampung Nusantara. The network started with this Kampung Cempluk, actually. From this festival, it grows into a network, and then it started to grow into other you know, connection to other kampung. And based on the example of this kampung, other kampung also try to do something else that is characteristic of their kampung. Now I would like to give you a second example of Karanggreneng sub-village. This is it's not in East Java, it's in Central Java. And most of the inhabitants are widows. About 40% of the 63 households consist of widows. And they are farm workers and melinjo grinders, not grinders, with a very low pay, very low pay. There is nothing in the village. It's no special, not natural attraction. There is no nothing except of rice field and farms. It's just normal garden and rice field, right? No waterfalls, no great, you know, rivers or anything, right? But one villager was inspired by a reality show in the television, and he started to create a live-in project for the city people to be connected to the kampung people, to live in, to experience how to be in the to stay in the kampung. But in order for them to do so, then they must have activities. What activities can they provide for the city people to join besides looking at the melinjo grinding, joining the melinjo grinding, or going to the rice field? There must be something else, because this city youth that are invited are elementary school, high school, you know, maybe also junior high school. So they must have something, games to play, right? And there must be something besides the gadgets that city young people used to play. So they start, these kampung people, they are usually addicted to gadget too already, but they started to relearn their games, their traditional games, in order later to play with the city young children when they come to their kampung. So they started to relearn their kampung games, and they started to enjoy it. They started also the martial art, the games, also the gamelan playing. All these things are relearned. And when they finally managed to have this live-in project and get money out of it, they share the income, you know, first to the widows, because each widows will have, they'll house, for example, 10 kids or 5 kids in their house, and they will earn some money. And then there's the rest, the profit out of it. The profit is used to build a common space for teaching village traditional arts, right? So this has been going up until the pandemic, of course. When the pandemic started, the city, the live-in project had to stop because they cannot have people coming and go from the village to the city. So they have to rely on the urban farming. So they have other source of income. Now they have saving from this activity. So the saving can be used in the time of crisis. And they also have urban farming to help them survive during the pandemic. This is another village which has become a sending point of female migrants to a cosmopolitan city. So the village is emptied out of adults. Children are left with the elderly grandparents. So the villages are empty. No, there's almost no workforce, right? So there's this couple of activists from the city that return to their home village because their elderly, their parents are starting to get sick, and they have to take care of the parents in the village. They return back to the village, and now they are looking at the condition, and they think about how to deal with this. So they started to reawaken a small thing again. This cultural, the games, children games of bamboo stilt. We call it egrang or bamboo stilt. Children are using the bamboo stilt to walk, and then later on to dance, and later on to do all sorts of acrobat during using the bamboo stilts, right? So they started with that, so that the children will come together and learn these traditional games. And then when the children come together and they learn already that these games and they like it, and the parents started to, the grandparents comes, and the grandparents will provide food for this activity. So there will be some kind of reawakening of this cultural knowledge, be it children games, cooking, and traditional recipes. And then they started, when the elderly meet together, they started to share their ideas. Maybe we can do something out of our knowledge to turn it into business, village business, to turn into traditional recipes to something to sell, right? So this started from the small thing. It grows into a bigger and bigger thing. Now, before the pandemics, of course, there is already an international festival there in the village of Egrang, Egrang Festival. I attended the first Egrang Festival in 2010, right? It was very simple. It's just they march with the stilt across the village. They march with, they use their whatever decoration, and they march across the village. The children play music using any kind of everyday object, and they march around the village, and then the adults will be the jury to choose which one is the winner, etc. It started with a very simple thing, but then it again, like in the other kampung, it grows into something that finally become the village icon. Now, the village has its icon, and later on, the community built school, not for children, for grannies. It became a center for critical literacy for the grannies, to how to take care of the children, how to discuss gender equality, for example, how to discuss even democracy, but of course not in these terms, but in their own terms, how to be involved, also that these grannies can be involved in making decision for the community, etc., etc. And so that when the migrant workers finally first flowing back to the village, there is already activities for them to sustain them, right? So these are 3 examples of 3 villages, how they use this cultural granaries as a metaphor for sustainable living. Well, this is the concept of commoning by this network Kampung Nusantara or Jaringan Kampung Nusantara or Nusantara Kampung Network. First, a communal lumbung, not only food, but also common resources. Second, they have this concept of festive gotong royong. Gotong royong is working together, but festive. There is always a festivity, something to be happy about. Dance, music, art, something to celebrate, right? And then the third is Sonjo Kampung or Kampung visit. Visiting other kampungs to share ideas or give support to neighboring kampung or villages. These are the three concepts that are being used, practiced by this the kampung network. These are examples of kampung visit. How one kampung visit other kampung, sharing experience, supporting another village cultural activities, discussing things, right? And this kind of village commoning has a certain resonance because the government also has some take on it. It's supported by at least the Ministry of Village, Ministry of Culture, right? There are some state kind of infrastructure that is established to support this kind of activity. There is village law in 2014 that gives authority to the village to manage their own money, right? Before it's, usually village is subordinated by the other, higher structures. But now the village has its own funds and the government gives them funding to be managed completely on their own. They have the authority to manage this funding. And there is also what is called Cultural Advancement Law in 2017, which gives support to villages in order to rebuild again, to regain their cultural resources, right? And this is an example of a village congress, cultural congress in June and August 2020, occurring in a village in Central Java. They do it on their own. So the kampung managed this cultural congress, and they published 21 books, of proceedings, and they have webinars, they have festivals, they call for papers, they have village declaration, all of this organized by the Kampung Network. And this is an example of a workshop that I'm involved in on Kampung Cultural Granary. If you can see here there is this picture of cultural of the rice granary, right? This picture of rice granaries, and each kampung will have some representative kampung to discuss what they will put in the granaries. This is a symbol of cultural granaries. What kind of resources do they have? What are the problems that they have to solve? How would whatever they keep in the granaries, how are they going to use the cultural resources in order to survive, in order to strengthen their kampung? How are the resources connected to their identity? All of these are being discussed in the workshop. Of course, this is sponsored by, so it's a combination of state, a government, university, and kampung. It's a kind of a transdisciplinary project working together. And about 3 years ago, I am also involved in this transdisciplinary research in 5 Jakarta kampung. So transdisciplinary meaning, first of all, there are not only one discipline. We have especially from Faculty of Medicine, Faculty of Economics, Faculty of Social Science, Faculty of Humanities, all gathered together and talk about kampung livability, talk issues of clean water, health, sanitation, and culture. How are these interrelated to build kampung resilience? And we go to 5 kampungs in Jakarta, all over, from the port area to the hilly area to the downtown area. We choose 5 kampungs, and then we talk about and we research together on clean water, sanitation, waste, and how these problems, actually there are a lot of problems, how does each kampung build their activities around the issues in order to survive and to negotiate within the the structure, that existing structures. These are some examples of how there is one experiment also done, but it is a state actually project of offering kind of opportunities to the 30 slums, they call it slum, very poor kampungs. How could they manage to improve themselves? It's a kind of competition done by the local government. And we sort of watch this. Our research also look at this and see how this impact kampung lifestyle. It's very interesting to see some of the kampung really managed to stand on their own, and this is the urban kampungs, of course. They try to create a better environment for themselves. This is one of the visit, how they use the walls and decorate it, making it livable. How they turn areas like simple areas to be a resource for guests to stay. It's a homestay by one grandma in one kampung. It is a kampung that is populated by many poor Chinese population that has been there for ages. It's called Penteng Chinese, because they used to live around the outside the walls of the colonial walls, right? So it's called Cina Benteng because they live outside the walls, and they have been there since the colonial period, and they are integrated to the indigenous population. And we visit this kampung and see how they create a certain theme for themselves, which is the multicultural kampung, because they have different kind of religion, different ethnicity, how they connect with each other. And this is an example of their homestay, very simple homestay owned by this grandma, very well known in the village. This homestay has already been used to receive guests from other kampungs. When they visit this kampung, they will stay in the homestay. So I would go into a conclusion that cultural granary or lumbung budaya in Indonesia is a term for commoning that is translatable to many village community. If you say commoning or whatever, they would not understand. But if they say granary or lumbung, they would understand what it means. And it's already the system of lumbung, which is the organization, the democratic organization of the lumbung together, and how they share the whatever is there for the well-being, is already within their framework of mind. So cultural granary relates to their kampung identity and is geared towards building up cultural resilience. The process is bottom-up, of course, combined with top-down sometimes, from in certain areas, the government initiated, but in other areas, it's the kampung communities initiated. in different places. Again, there are some university and collaboration, right? So this is a transdisciplinary collaboration between state, local government, university, and kampung activists. And the social media serves as a platform to connect the kampung across Indonesia. So the network is there, thanks also to the digital ecosystem, right? Of course, the process is not easy. It's complex and rife with a lot of problems. Sometimes the initiative is hijacked by elite politics for, for vote getters, etc. And one issue that I will talk later on in response later to some discussion is the issue of identity politics, right? Indonesia is very diverse. It consists of hundreds of ethnic groups, and we have different religions. Although the majority is Muslim, we have Christian, we have Hindu, we have like the Bali, all of them majority are Hindu, and there are islands which majority are Christians and Catholics, for example. So these are very diverse. We have very diverse population, and in each kampung, of course, some kampung are homogeneous, but urban kampungs can never be homogeneous. Urban kampungs, people come and go. They so very heterogeneous in urban kampungs. In rural areas, some are heterogeneous, some are homogeneous, but some are also heterogeneous. For example, kampung in Kalimantan, in Borneo, there are a lot of migrants or transmigrant from Java coming there. So their kampungs usually consisting of Dayak from Javanese, Bugis, quite heterogeneous in their population. But the issue of identity politics is always there. Why? Because in the national politics, identity politics is always used for vote gatherers. So when it is used by the elite leaders, then of course it will reverberate, it will resonate to the ground. And some people are affected by this identity politics, and there is usually tension also. So these kampungs are not free from that. They are also within this kind of identity politics. There is also, in dealing with kampung, there is this, I told you there are many laws now that are supportive of kampung development, right? But those who are taking care of the laws, for example, the one from this ministry, the other one from the other ministry, right? They don't coordinate with one another. It's very difficult to have this state institution to coordinate with one another. So sometimes they create confusion when they give all these regulations to the kampung people, right? And also, the kampungs are also trapped within the neoliberal structures, right? If you go to Kampung and Kalimantan, they are all within the palm oil industries. They cannot live outside it already. So they are within it. So how they negotiate this kind of all these forces, political forces and cultural forces around them? This is something that maybe later on we will discuss. One thing though, there is a momentum. There is an energy there. In cultural studies, we call it's highly articulated now. There is a strong articulation, meaning there is this intersection of forces that is pulled together by this kampung cultural activism. So the momentum is there, right? And there is this hope. We call a politics of hope here. So there is a lot of hope and optimism that something can materialize out of this momentum of kampung, cultural activism. And there is a hope also that through this kind of activity, we can intervene into the areas that has not been totally subjugated by the neoliberal structure. Of course, they are within it, but there is some gaps, some areas. There is some space there to work or to do something to keep, for example, the transactional mentality away. For example, not totally outside, but to balance it with the communal spirit, something like that. This is once, if not to reverse the current neoliberal paradigm, is to negotiate within it and to strengthen the community resilience. So it's a locus, according to me, for South and South collaboration, because there are kampungs community everywhere, and we can start to do networking, not only national, but also transnational. So for a regional collaboration. I think I will stop there and then listen to the responses that you have, and then we can follow up with discussion. Thank you.